So we're going to be talking about marketing in the framework that we can set up basically for what I call the BBOs, the busy business owners. And
I'm
and that,
sorry, I screwed that up. I was
what
the other way around.
did you read it wrong?
I read it wrong. Well, let me put it this way. I printed
You're
off what I
throwing me
thought.
off completely.
I
This is Friday. This may go live Monday, but we're recording it Friday,
Here's
which
the
means
deal.
my brain is on low fuel.
I printed off what I thought we were talking about, and then lo and behold, Brian updates it just a little bit. So I saw
I
Bob
All
because
right. Now
because of all of our acronyms now. So
listen, just for everybody just listening, I did a slight adjustment, which for all of these method men out there and women, they don't like adjustments. They talk about, oh, let's have an organization that flexes, but they don't like to flex. Oh no.
if you okay, from this point on, everything's an experiment, including what we decide to have the conversation about.
Yes,
So
I
now I'm good
believe
with
that's
that
correct. Yes.
because
Yeah.
you are the chop driving. We got to have an outline. It's got to be done. We got to talk about the night before, and all of a sudden you're just throwing it all the wind
Oh,
and
come
hoping I
on.
can keep up with you.
Listen, I'm going to take my Tonka toys and play in a different sandbox if you don't stop.
This is awesome, man. This is awesome. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. So, um, here's what I ask is, your marketing copy. Who likes doing it? I've been doing it for years, and frankly, I hate doing marketing copy, doing trying to. I feel like every time I am the Neanderthal trying to recreate the wheel again and reinvent fire. Every time I have to come up with a new marketing piece to promote whatever. And my problem is I feel that too often it takes too much brain capacity for me to switch from what I'm doing to now becoming creative. And then it just gets, in the end, it just ends up falling to the wayside. And I know a lot of businesses are this way too. And so that's what we really want to talk about today. How do we know that there's so many small business owners out there that do their own marketing. They have to. They can't afford a giant marketing firm to come up with these things. So how do we make this simple and straightforward of a process so that they can create good marketing copy that resonates with people all the time?
I love that idea, Brian. And I also think I wouldn't even think about sitting down and trying to do copy myself. But I want to have a lot of input. So I think
Right.
either way, whether you're doing it yourself or you're going to hand it off to somebody or even maybe potentially use AI,
Right.
this framework you've put together makes it very easy to get your thoughts around, what are you actually trying to do, right? So that you
Now,
can convey it to somebody.
I do want to ask you, having taken a good 2 or 3 days to go over this framework that I put together on this sheet, what are your thoughts on it?
I've just sort of scratched the surface. It's so in depth, Brian. There's so much meat here that what I
All right,
want to
I'm
do
done with
is
this tennis match. Forget it.
start to pick apart, and then I'm going to follow your lead.
Okay. All right. Here's a problem. This is what I wrote down, a few things. Marketing copy often, and when I say marketing copy, our messaging that we're trying to do, and it doesn't matter whether it's Facebook posts, Instagram posts, little YouTube clips that we're creating, email copy, newspaper ads. It really doesn't matter. It's all in that same category. So it tends to be boring and tedious, and it's not our number one priority at all. The goal is, or the problem I actually am saying is, we need to create good content for our customer base without it sounding canned and fake. We're tired of that. People want sincerity. That's the reason they're coming to small businesses, because there's a bit of apprehension with dealing with big businesses, right? Because we've gotten raked over the coals by a lot of them.
So Brian, this framework you're talking about now is it can apply to pretty much any sort of medium, could
Right.
be like use that, and then also a consistent way of actually looking at that same message, and it could go out, that very same message could go out in different mediums at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah. The more we can repurpose it, the better our ROI is going to be on this. So our investment as a small business owner creating this will probably not be much as far as quantitative dollars go. It's going to be our time and our emotional energy that we're putting into creating this. So that's where we want to get a good return on our in feedback back on this. So yeah, so I looked it up, and it's kind of interesting. You probably know this, but I didn't know it. The left brain and the right brain. So I researched, and I was like, why do I always feel, and why did I feel especially stressed as a small business owner when I was doing lots of projects and things like that, and I had this, and then I had to just sit down in a quiet place and just write a radio ad, because I did a lot of radio ads back 10 years ago or so. And I was like, why does that really stress me out? Well, here's one of the reasons. The left brain is generally considered more logical, analytical, and focused on language and sequential tasks, your everyday processes. Just bing, 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 go do this, this. Your right brain is associated with creativity, intuition, and visual spatial reasoning. So the right brain is creativity. And so the left brain is habitual actions and just your go and do it, get it done, mentally not working so much the right hand side of just being creative and trying to come up with something from zero. So when you go back and forth, that creates an incredible stress for you. What we want to do in this framework is keep it all on the left brain side. So we want to have this as a framework. So we're just going, here's this, fill in this blank, fill in this blank, fill in this blank, look at it, and then we can get creative with it and have a little bit of fun. But the point is to start from zero and be creative is way, way, way too much to expect for us busy business owners, our BBOs, or Bobs, as you like to call them. Yeah, I like it. It's still the same letters. It's fine.
What I like is, even though you've dramatically changed, the entire outline for this episode, you did have the left brain, right brain. And I love this because when you think of context switching, right, people talk about multitasking, which is, that's not a real thing.
No, it is. It is. I multitask. My definition for multitask is Brian screwing up on more than one thing at one time.
Ooh.
And I can screw up on two or more things at one time. That's multitasking. Wow. And you can ask my wife. I am fantastic at it. Okay. But you go ahead. Prove me wrong.
But this is really some deep thinking here, because typically you think about just context switching within your normal rote work that you're doing using left brain, but that's not only switching from a prior context, but now switching the side of the brain you're working on. That's a huge resource burn, right? Trying to get that done. And to your point, it's like, wait a minute, there is a way, a method.
Yes,
if I could throw that out there, method that you could use to actually reduce that switching cost and make it easier to get into the mindset of, how do I create this content that I need to create? Right.
And so really what it is we've got like 3 simple key points. I've actually said we actually have 4, but the first one is really just what not to do. The first one is forget about your product. They actually all start with P's, by the way, too. So I guess I should have been a Southern Baptist preacher instead, instead of.
I think you got a little of that in you anyway.
I think so. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Everybody's asleep by after 20 minutes of listening to me anyways. I would have been perfect at it. So forget the product that you're promoting. Okay, forget it. We try to get too fake and try to push a product on people, and we need to just take a step back. Know what product you're going to promote, obviously, but that needs to be that's the last step that we're actually going to talk about the product. And once we do that, it takes the stress and onus off of us as creators of trying to push almost like a square peg in a round hole. All of a sudden, now we can take a step back. Okay, I don't need to promote the product. Don't do it. Don't even think about it. And so the first step really is very simple. And I had to laugh as I was typing this up a few days ago or minutes ago. And because it's what you talked about a couple episodes ago. And this is focus on the problem.
Yes, yes,
Focus
yes, yes.
on the problem. The reason this is so important, just like you said before, is the fact that this clarifies things. It simplifies it. The water is no longer muddy. It's nice and clear. Okay, what is the problem that I am wanting to solve? So basic, and yet we skip over it as small business owners. Why do we skip over it? Very simple. We're solving the problem all day long for every customer that comes into our business or however. And so we kind of take for granted that the people coming in or prospects know what their problem is. And it's not true.
I really like this, Brian, bringing this into this framework. A big part of that is because sometimes customers aren't thinking, they think they just need to quickly get something, right?
Yeah.
If you focus on the problem, to your point, it makes them think broader about how to look at that, no matter what that is. Am I buying a socket set? Am I buying a grill? Whatever the case may be. But by focusing on the problem, you get a larger field of vision on, what exactly they're trying to acquire and why they're trying to acquire it. So that seems like that would help out your customer, immensely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the one thing, and people ask, well, why don't you want to? I want to talk about the product right off the bat because maybe they won't even listen to me, so I need to get it out there immediately. It's like those YouTube pre-roll clips. I need to get it out there in the first 5 seconds in case they press the skip ad, the skip button. Well, they won't press the skip button if they're intrigued with what you have to say.
Hey, we should follow our own advice here, dude.
Yeah. How so? Maybe
rewind the tape. Just what you said.
I don't like this, Mike. I don't like this one bit.
Give them the meat up front, and then they'll go, I don't have to listen to this for 40 minutes. And Brian set up to 20 minutes. He's kind of toast anyway. So we're down to a 5-minute episode.
It's true. It's true. It's probably 5 minutes worth of quality content that we cram into 45 minutes. It's like my college education. I crammed in a 4-year education into 6 years. It worked out well,
Wow. Did you get a doctorate?
Listen, I was 2 years away from being a Tommy boy. The reason we don't talk about product right off the bat is because it's often like a server at a restaurant. They're trying to, you don't want anybody pushing dessert on you before you've gotten your appetizer, let alone taking the order for the appetizer, right? I mean, so pushing our product before we push the problem and identify the problem is kind of like doing that, being like, hey, what do you want for dessert? What are you kidding me? I just got here. You haven't even taken the drink order. Well, we've got some really good pecan pie. And I say pecan, by the way. I'm down south, and everybody else says pecan, like they're, nose in the air, pinky out. And meanwhile, I say pecan. So I know there'll be a lot of people listening that'll be offended by that. But the point being,
Brian, being a method man, though, I come in and I order end to end right away, including dessert, and then I ask for the check before they bring my appetizer. I want the check. So I
Are
can
you
bail at any
serious?
given time.
Yeah. Are you? That's like the Seinfeld episode where Jerry Seinfeld says, "Hey, why do they give you the check at the end? You know, they should give it to you at the beginning when you're hungry, when you don't care, you'll pay it anyways. At the end, you're full, you don't need anything else in life, and yet now you have to pay a bill."
And the tip is actually going down. The longer it takes for them to come back and get up that, grab your credit card, that percentage is going down as you're waiting, a half an hour to hand over your credit card.
Jeez. Mike, I have you pictured in my mind at a restaurant where you have a stopwatch and you're like, every extra 30 seconds, honey, that this server takes, it's another 1% off of her tip. Is that right? Is that,
Brian, I don't use a stopwatch. I use my Apple Watch.
oh, excuse me. Of course. Yeah. So, anyways, the point being, there's no reason to push dessert before an appetizer. Let's set up the right way of doing this. And what we want to do is create a simple structure framework so that everybody feels comfortable going on in and creating, whether it is a Facebook ad or what have you. Now, we talked about this, I think, earlier on in the week, Mike, but the one thing to keep in mind with any of these points is you do not have to use all of them. There's only 3, but you don't have to use all of them all the time. We get into this where we're like, so if we have a short social media post that we want to put out, we may just put the problem real quickly and then just stop on in,
I
a
like
quick
that.
little call to action. It doesn't have to be the other 2 steps always. We've simplified it right on down. You and I have gone and we're both what would we say, where we've sat under the feet of at the feet of Donald Miller? Would you say that?
At the master, yes.
We've listened as little grasshoppers. And he has a much longer process called the story brand, which is fantastic. And what we wanted to do was just kind of scale it down even more so, and not to take anything away from Donald Miller's story brand process, which is absolutely fantastic. You would agree, correct?
Yeah, and what I like about your framework and not using all of it is you literally can start doing pieces of that story brand script, but you're kind of dripping it. So if I just start
Right.
with a problem, say stop on in, then that can continue that conversation because you end
Right.
up pretty much going through that whole story arc,
Right.
that's typical. But your point is let's not do the whole thing up front because that's a lot of work to go through.
Right. And also keep in mind your method that you're going to be communicating this through. It's a huge difference if you have an email that you're sending out, a 1-page email, or a blog you're putting out, or a 60-second YouTube clip versus a 5 to 10-second TikTok clip. So just keeping that in mind makes a huge difference. So the first thing is focus on the problem. That is number 1. Do that. There's 2 problems. Let's just boil it down to 2 problems, and it's either a physical problem or an emotional problem. And oftentimes the physical always leads on into the emotional, and we want to identify both. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. One thing is I liken it to in the retail field, we were always told, hey, don't talk about the features of the product, talk about the what?
The
Benefits of the product. Yes. I look at that's the equivalent in the problem area. So don't just talk about the physical problem, talk about the emotional problem too. So that I liken that to the features and benefits on the negative side. So keeping that in mind, the point being, Let me think of something. Fleas and ticks on your dog. That's obviously a physical problem, for them and things like that. But the emotional problem of having fleas and ticks get into your house and then feeling uncomfortable, and every time you sit on the couch, then all of a sudden you're worried, you'd start psychosomatically thinking that something's crawling on you and itching all the time, and you can't ever get any rest now, and you hate to even be home now that becomes an emotional problem that resonates much more than, hey, buy our flea and tick shampoo because you don't want to have fleas and ticks on your dog.
You know, this is making me think. I've been watching my 180-pound English Mastiff scratching herself, and all of a sudden I'm feeling like, there's something going on here, dude.
You have 180-pound English Mastiff?
Well, my daughter and her husband have a 180-pound Mastiff that stays with us. So yes.
Good night. I'm kind of embarrassed to say, I broke my arm on a bull when I was bull riding on a bull that was probably didn't weigh much more than 180 pounds. Did you know
And she's
that? Did I
actually
tell you that
small
story?
for a Mastiff. That's actually small.
Yeah, gosh. Did I tell you that story or not?
No.
Oh, my word.
Dude.
Yeah. I went through a phase where I wanted to do bull riding. And the last bull of the night, it was just a large dog, like a big dog. And I was like, what the heck is this thing? They're like, oh, he's a spunky thing. I'm like, what's his name? And he's like, Crick Hog. And I'm like, did you say Crick Hog, as in like a pig that wallows in a creek? He's like, yep. And I'm like, oh gosh, I can't hurt myself on this. I ended up breaking both my radius and ulna on his backbone because he had a backbone that stuck out from him about an inch above his back, and my free hand broke it over his backbone. And for the next 6 months, I was rehabbing it. So I broke it over a bull that wasn't much bigger than an English Mastiff, to say the least.
It's just like my golf game. When you think about what you don't want to have happen, it always happens, right?
Oh yeah,
So I don't want to break
don't
my
think about
bones.
slicing.
Boom.
Yep. Don't think about slicing. Okay, so the first thing is focus on the problem, and we don't want to just focus on the physical problem, but also the emotional problem. Point being, also write them down. Come up with a list. What are the problems that I want to solve that our product does solve for them? How does this emotionally solve a problem for them too? How does it make them feel afterwards? So do both the negative and the positive side of that. The third thing, and this is the one thing I like, and this goes hand in hand with how I do help a lot of the small businesses, and this is identify the pessimist. I think that the enemy, should I say, too much in our culture today, we don't like to point the finger at the bad guy, right? I mean, we don't want to, hey, I'm not one to point any fingers, but this happens, when we can show and clearly identify that there is a pessimist out there, there is an antagonist out there, whether that's the situation they end up being in, a person, or it could be a thing that they want to avoid, that galvanizes people together like nothing else can. What say you?
Yeah, I like the term antagonist.
Yeah.
Some of the others you throw out there, I think it just hits the right note. And those are the things that hit you emotionally, right? And that's when you say, okay, yep, this is what I don't like. This is what I don't want.
Mm-hmm. So the reason why I think this is so important is because this same framework can then be used both in your external marketing and in your internal communications with your sales staff and your employee staff for galvanizing your culture. So that's why I like this so much. So you can apply this same structure to your I wouldn't necessarily say mission statement, but definitely what you stand for on a much more operational standpoint. Does that
And then
make
you've got,
sense?
yeah, and then you've got that an internal alignment,
Right.
which is critical.
Right. Right. So, and it's very simple to communicate this to your sales staff, your front facing people and organization where, hey, this is what people are have a problem with. This is what they're fighting against, whether it's maybe it's the big box stores. This is what we're fighting against too. This puts us all in the same trench together. And that's just fantastic for culture. So,
Well, and it makes your brand consistent because your team that embodies that messaging, right? So when they're interacting with your customers, anyone that actually that comes to your store, they're going to embody that exact messaging, and so it isn't like, well, I heard this from you through your emails or from your Facebook page, but I come in and talk to your team and I'm hearing
yeah.
something completely different.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's funny that you say that. I believe that's probably the number one problem when it comes to marketing and sales for small businesses is the fact that there's a huge gap. And actually, I was talking to another consultant out in Arizona about this, and there's just this gap between the external marketing, the messaging that's going out from your company, and then the internal sales staff being trained on that same message and standing behind it. And it goes beyond just, it's not just words, it's actually, hey, here's the product knowledge, this is how we're going to communicate it, know that when people come in they have these problems, and it's just getting everybody on the same page. And it doesn't happen. I mean, it's incredible because I was asking him, I said, do you see this happening? He goes, no, absolutely not. This 90% of the time, this does not happen. The places where it does, it is incredibly successful. So that's why it's so important to have this simple structure so that it can be applied throughout the organization, because we don't have enough time. We don't have enough time to have a different structure and a different process for all of this.
And it's such a different experience. To your point, you come into a store like that, Brian. It feels different, right?
Right.
Because everything's consistent. It's what I heard on the radio. It's what I saw on the Facebook ad. It's what I saw on the email. And I come in and I feel that. And then your team is always thinking about, how am I creating value for the customer? A big part of that is understanding what problem you're trying to solve for them, right? How
Mhm.
you've messaged that to them, and your team knows exactly how to interact then with them when they come in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So, and then the last part is really simple. It's present the product. It's just presenting the product. It's like asking for the sale. If you do everything else right, when you ask for the sale at the end, it's just, hey, would you like me to put that in a box for you? Would you like me to wrap that up for you? Would you like me to take that to the counter for you? It's as simple as that. It does not need to be complicated. Just the biggest thing is I wrote down 3 things: make it clear, make it simple, and make it bold. That's it. That's all you need to do. Having said that, a lot of us think that, oh man, I got to spend all my time on that delivery, on this. All right, making that perfect pitch, which is garbage. 70% of I actually wrote down 60, but I would say 60 to 70% of the time we should spend focusing on the problem. Once we get that problem clearly identified, it's just all downhill from there.
Brian, do you then look at a sort of a good, better, best? So you've presented the problem, you've got a product in mind. How do working with the team, how do you present the product, or is it I suppose it could be a single product, but
Mhm.
at times you may want to do sort of a good, better, best. How do you predetermine what that is? So by the time that the customer is there to say, hey, you've got a bit of a script on, how you're going to present those products to the customer.
Yeah, so you're talking about a more of a sales script or sales presentation for your internal staff, correct? As opposed
No,
to external marketing messaging?
actually, I'm thinking you've got a customer in the store, you're talking
Okay.
to them, right? They're talking about that very same problem that you've teed up. Now it's time to say, hey, here's what we've got for you, right? Because now it's time to present the product. You're in the store, they're right there, they're ready to buy. Now you're at that point, it's like, okay, here's what we have for you in terms of
hmm
product.
Yeah. So yes, a minimum of 2 solutions. 3 is better. Good, better, best is always the best. If they're there to make a true decision. So a lot of people that'll come into different retail places are not looking to make a decision. So let me put it this way. There's a big difference between somebody coming on in and thinking and wanting to buy some dog food versus somebody that comes on in and needs to have their toilet fixed.
Gotcha.
One
Yep.
is one is, all right, well, we got some options for you with the dog food. You know, you got this, this, and this, in which case I say, absolutely, you want to present them. Don't ever back somebody into the corner. The other situation is, I have this problem. I need to get it fixed. Let's get it fixed.
Hmm.
There's less opportunity for presenting options there, although there always is some, and you want to explore that. But for the most part, they're just consumed with solve this direct, immediate problem. My toilet can't flush. This is the issue. Okay. Yeah. Let's just, here it is. And then you can go from there.
Got it. Makes good sense.
Does that
Yes,
answer your question there?
you bet.
So yeah, but never ever back somebody into a corner with only one solution, especially when they're kicking the tires and they're investigating. You want to provide good information, but to do that first, you have to clearly identify what their problem is.
Yeah.
In
And
which
there's
case,
never,
yeah,
yeah, I was going to say, and there's never one solution, right? Typically.
right, right. Yeah, there really isn't, because what I consider maybe a good solution for feeding your small horse that's in your house, um, may be different for you. Like I'll say, hey, this food is the best. But you're like, yeah, Brian, that is the best. But I would also have to remortgage my house to feed this cow that's living on the couch.
No couch. We don't allow the couch.
Oh, is that right? Oh, the poor thing. That's not right. So again, so let me just rehash it here. Forget the product. That's your first step. Forget it. Have it written to the side, but do not even think about it yet. Focus on the problem. 2 parts of the problem: physical and emotional. Okay. Focus on the problem. Number 2, identify the pessimist or the antagonist in the situation. If at all possible, whether it's just a situation that they want to avoid, if you want to be very, very clear about that, and you can just do that and say, hey, make sure here's the outcome that you want to avoid. But you can also use a specific person, idea, etc. And then the third thing is present the product. Just present it simply, clearly, and boldly to present the product. So I wrote down, and I thought it was really interesting here. I thought, okay, let me just throw this together. And 2 examples, and I threw in like a wrench. I said, it's just a wrench that I was going to sell from a local store. And here are the 2 different examples. Introducing the new Pro Grip wrench, now available at Young's. Built for strength and precision, this wrench makes every job easier. Stop by Young's today and upgrade your toolbox. Or using our framework, it'll sound like something like this. Tired of slipping wrenches slowing you down? At Young's, we know you want to finish your projects faster and with less frustration. Our new Pro Grip wrench gives you the confidence and control you need to get the job done right every time. Visit Young's and make your next project a success. Now, you don't have to necessarily go through that whole thing, but doesn't that sound a lot more personal?
It does,
then
especially with your radio voice,
oh,
Brian.
thanks.
So, just enunciate perfectly, but it does. I mean, you can feel it when
Right.
as you read that, and of course, I was able to read it while you were speaking it.
Yeah,
But
because I gave it to you so far ahead of time, Mike. You've had this for minutes now.
But it does. If you listen to it, it makes a big difference. And I
Yeah.
think using the framework, you feel more compelled to actually do something about that, right? Versus the other one is actually I like the other one too because you actually did an upgrade and you said not only get a wrench, but you need to upgrade your toolbox. So you're trying
Yeah.
to do an upsell too.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, you can do that for sure. For sure. And when you get that down, then all of a sudden you'd be like, you know what? I just want to put in there Facebook clip. My Facebook post, tired of slipping wrenches slowing you down? Try our new pro grip. That's it. Bing, done. One post. You want to do another post? At Young's, we know that finishing your projects faster and with less with projects faster and with less frustration is essential. Our Pro Grip wrench is here to help you do that. That's another post. So you can repurpose this, which is so essential.
So it seems like, I like this because you're probably better off doing a little bit of more of a long form because
Yeah.
then you can take snips of that. So
Yeah.
think of
Yeah.
almost like a short email, get that written, and then you can start to take smaller pieces of it so it's consistent no matter what, whether, like you said, it's a Facebook post, whatever it is, that it's the same content, taken from the same content, but it's just a different way of message that content to your customer.
Absolutely. And keeping in mind the method that you're communicating, you will want to go more longhand with video clips maybe, and have more words that you'll be speaking out and that type of thing when you know that people will stay engaged longer. So that's just something to keep in mind. But if you have something longer, yeah, take just little clips of it. You don't have to use it all at once.
Great.
So yeah, this
All
is
right.
good.
You got some summary or wrap up points here, Brian?
That is it. We got our forget the product, focus on the problem, identify the pessimist, present the product. Very simple. The key on this is just like what we identified with AI. The key is to use this as a diving board. Get you started. Don't be afraid to get in the water. It's not as cold as you think. So just get in, okay? Jump off that diving board. And that's the key. And this will help immensely. And you can use this with your internal sales staff too.
I love it. And like you said, you've got to either write it down, type it up, anything to capture those ideas and think through the framework. And to your point, once you do that, then maybe go a little bit of longer form, and then you could use 1, 2, or 3 of the different pieces of the framework. That's up to you. But it almost sounds like it's a bit of a game, right? It's like, how can I take this short paragraph of content, and what if I did a Facebook post? What if I did a longer email and do that? It becomes sort of a game. But now you're just taking that same content and figuring out different ways to convey that message or parts of the message to your customer. I love that.
Yeah. And to your point, one last thing is, and this especially goes to the BBOs out there, do not feel guilty about repurposing this. This is your message. You created it yourself. Do not feel guilty about piecemealing little parts of this and putting it all over your marketing media empire, so to speak.